Welcome back to the Fapstinence podcast with Peter and Kevin. In week 4, we're talking about choosing an accountability partner. And if you tuned in for the previous episode, we were talking about how important it is to have one. And we were focusing on if your accountability partner is joining you on the road to recovery itself. But it's important to make a distinction if you are choosing an accountability partner who is not actually actively quitting porn at the same time as you. There are some differences in how we suggest you structure that relationship. That being said, it's important to choose somebody, whether or not they're joining you, who is vulnerable with you. Okay, so you need to choose somebody that you can trust and you can be comfortable with, because you're going to need to talk about things like how you're feeling, how you're dealing with your addiction, how your week is going, and being able to trust them and speak openly with them from the heart, and to receive criticism from them as well. So it may go without saying, but we highly recommend that you choose somebody who is of the same biological nature
Persuasion.
as you.
Same sex. Same sex, same gender. Some people think that they're different from each other. We're not going to comment on people who say that. Just if you're a boy, choose a boy. If you're a girl, choose a girl. Okay, let's keep it simple.
And we're talking
Let's not bring
about
weird PC politics into this shit.
We're talking about biology specifically when we're talking about that, though, because it's important to be able to open up about what's going on with you. If the other person is of a different gender, they're not going to be able to relate in the same sort of way, and they're not going to be able to have the same kind of conversation with you. Men need to be having accountability partners who are other men, because it's just similar struggles. Same thing with women. If you're a girl going through this course, great. We are focusing on men, but we really recognize that that's something that needs to be done as well. And we just recommend that you choose somebody of the same gender for those reasons. You're going to be able to relate to them better.
I think something that we should dive into first to kind of set the ground rules or set the stage, I should say, of choosing an accountability partner that's not also addicted to porn is talk about the entire process from a macro overview of even introducing the idea to them first, and then what that should look like, and then we should get more into kind of the specifics of it from there. Okay, so step 1, you have to really make sure that they understand that this is the most important thing for you to do in your life right now, for you to overcome. That if you can overcome this, then the rest of your life is going to turn around. They need to understand that. A lot of times when you ask someone to help you out with something and they don't help you out the way that you expected, typically it's an issue of communication, not actually that they don't want to help you. They don't actually understand how important this is to you. So you need to be very articulate and clear about how important this is to you, and then they will be glad to help you. Okay, so that's step number 1. Step number 2 is you need to tell them give them a specific deadline of where you want their help. Okay, so it really helps to do a 30-day challenge during the, while this is, I believe right now when this is posted, it's going to be No Nut November. So you can use that as a justification saying, hey, I'm trying to do this thing during November to completely abstain from pornography. I need you to help me out during this time in November. Okay, and then after that, you want to have specific check-ins, kind of like you would, like we talked about in our last episode, with someone who is, it's the same exact, it's very similar to someone who is trying to actively quit porn being your accountability partner as well. You want to have daily check-ins, right? Just do, and we'll get into the details of how to do that, because it's a little bit different for people who aren't joining you on the journey, right? Who are your accountability partners. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the gist of it from a macro overview, but let's get into the details in a second first. Before I get into that, I want to mention one more thing. When it comes to this, it's going to be a much different dynamic naturally than if your accountability partner is actively trying to quit porn as well. Because naturally, when two people interact, there tends to be, and especially if you guys are striving toward the same goal, there tends to be one person that takes on a little bit more of a leadership role and another person that takes on a little bit more of a follower role. Those things will naturally come to fruition when you're both actively trying to quit porn. However, if only one of you is trying to quit porn and the other person is there to help the other person try to quit, then it's on you as the person who's trying to quit to take the leadership responsibility. You cannot have that leadership or project that leadership responsibility on the other person that's trying to help you, because they, one, can never fully understand your struggles because they're not you. And two, you need to have a specific roadmap of how to quit. And then you should have an idea about where they fit along that journey. And if you're the one orchestrating the whole thing, you're basically by definition the one taking the leadership role. Okay, so you can't expect your accountability partner, especially if they don't have the same struggles with porn that you have, to fully understand how this whole journey should look. That needs to come from you. So you need to take a leadership responsibility with this. So there's a lot more responsibility on you when you have an accountability partner that's not also actively trying to quit pornography. So that's why that's the number one thing that, first of all, you need to have someone that you trust as your accountability partner. Ideally, that person is trying to quit porn with you as well. But we understand that there's a lot of cases where you don't have someone that you fully trust that is addicted to porn, and they're the only person who could possibly be your accountability partner. And that's why we're making this podcast here. So,
yeah, I think either way, you need to take ownership of your situation. You're trying to help yourself, and you need to take control of what you can within that. So even if you're dealing with another person who's your accountability partner, you're walking on this journey together, you need to be very clear with what it is you're trying to accomplish. That just becomes doubly so when you're dealing with an accountability partner who is not trying to quit porn with you. So it's important that you understand what it is you're trying to get out of this, and to articulate that to the person you're asking to be your accountability partner. If you're doing something like, if you're not really sure what that looks like, and you're doing something like No Nut November, that might be your surface level motivation to begin with. And that's okay. Having a challenge is great, as we mentioned, but you're going to need a much deeper reason for quitting and things that you think you're going to be getting out of it in order to do this for the long haul. Luckily, in week 5, we're going to be talking specifically about that concept, about finding your why. So keep an eye open for that episode when it releases. But the important thing to understand here is you need to understand what it is you're trying to do and the steps you're going to take to implement it, so that when you identify a person that you are comfortable with and you want to approach and say, hey, I think maybe this person could be my accountability partner, that when you ask them, you can be very clear what it is you need from them. And being very clear about how important that is to you, right, Kevin?
yeah, absolutely. So in order to have someone, and again, this goes a little bit back to what I was talking about before, they need to have a full understanding of how important this is to you. Let's be honest, if you are listening to this podcast right now, you're recognizing that this is an extremely important thing for you to overcome. So you need to let them know that. You need to be like, hey man, there's this thing I'm trying to do. I'm trying to quit porn. All likelihood, they already have kind of an understanding that you at least watch porn. They might not have an idea that it's a huge problem. And just tell them, it's like, look, I've been doing some research, and I truly believe that me quitting porn is the most important thing in my life right now, and it's holding me back from so many things. And you're my best friend. It feels weird telling you this, dude, but I feel like I just need to tell you. And as part of quitting this, I heard that I was always suggested that there's good to have an accountability partner that you trust. So is it cool with you if I just check in with you sometimes, and we can come up with a plan for me to kind of kick this thing? Of course, they'll say, yeah, if it's a good friend of yours. And then after that, you can say, okay, well, more specifically, obviously, I don't want you to hold my hand through my porn addiction for the rest of my life. But, there's this challenge that's going on right now. I'm trying to do a 30-day challenge. And just as part of that, I just want to, they suggest that I send you a voice message every single day. You don't necessarily need to respond to it. Just give me like a thumbs up or something that you heard it. It's just kind of a good thing to be in the routine of. So, every single night before I go to bed, I'm just going to tell you kind of how my day went, how I felt, all this other stuff. And then you just send me at least a thumbs up back, and then that's good. And if you want to add anything in, you can, but no pressure. And that's going to really help me over it in the next 30 days.
Right. And in doing that, I think what Kevin did right here is a really nice example. You want to mention, if you're doing this for No Nut November, that this is a very intensive launch pad for you, right? So you're asking them to commit in a little more depth than you will throughout the rest of this journey. And being able to send that message daily to them, you're going to start to naturally make a connection. At the end of the day, I'm going to focus on how did my day go, how strong were my urges, and what were the emotions I was dealing with as well. And being able to articulate that to someone else is going to be huge. In fact, we do an entire episode later on where we talk about how to talk about porn and how that really can free you to be able to articulate what you're dealing with openly with someone else. But as you can imagine, that's a very awkward thing to do at first, which is why it's important to have an accountability partner who's on board and understands what that commitment is. Now, what you're going to be sharing with them, you need to share the basics. You need to share what the goals that you have when you're asking them to be your accountability partner. You need to share what your goals are and the steps you're trying to take. So in the situation of the challenge, Kevin gave a good example here. He said, I'm going to check in with you daily at night with a voice message, and I need you to respond to let me know that you saw it, and that's going to help me out. Being able to be that specific with your accountability partner from the get-go is going to let them know this is serious to you because you've thought this out enough, and then they know what it is they're supposed to do to help you. So I can't really say yes to helping you unless you're specific about what you need. So that's really, really important. Now, past that challenge, you're not going to be expecting them to check in with you daily. That's not really fair of you to make that kind of make somebody make that kind of commitment. But what I do think is for that first 30 days, especially if you're doing No Nut November, having that daily check-in, that other person's going to realize, oh shoot, this is intense. This person's really going for it, and I need to be there for them if I'm going to say yes. And then from there on, we really expect that you are checking in. I would recommend weekly and a specified date and time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. That's something that you want to do regularly from then on, especially if this is someone that you fully trust. Obviously, that's why you're choosing them as an accountability partner. You're typically going to, I'd imagine, just talk to them or see them normally throughout your life regardless. So take those times, every single time you see them, to just check in with them, and if they're a really good friend of yours, they might actually go out of their way to check in and see how you're doing, So especially as you try to adopt it into more of a lifestyle after your initial 30 days where you have them just being there for you every single day, just by being there to listen to you if you need be. Once you complete that 30-day challenge, which is a huge accomplishment in itself, after that, in order to adopt it as a lifestyle, just make sure that he's the type of person that you could talk to when you need to. Because the more and more that you kick this addiction, the less you're going to need accountability partners to rely on. You still want to have them, right, that you can reach out to them, but it's going to be a lot different than when you're first trying to kick this addiction. So as part of that, I do think that, you should join like a group of guys who are trying to quit this as well, even if you don't know them personally. We have our own Facebook group called Fapstinence Fam, which, it's a tight-knit community of bros all really trying to aim for the same thing, which is freedom from porn. And you can start to develop some friendships through that group as well. Will it be to the point where they can become your accountability partner? Maybe not. But at the same time, it's like when you have a community of guys who are doing the same thing, really trying to accomplish the same thing, it's very motivating. In our earlier podcast, we talked about AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, how people are able to kick the addiction purely just as being a result of a community of like-minded people, right? So in addition to having this accountability partner, you should be in a group of like-minded people. That's what Fapstinence Fam is for. So
Right.
I always plug to join that in, but it's the best place on Facebook for those trying to kick this addiction. So go ahead and join. It's free.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing about starting with something like No Nut November, and the reason why we're releasing this episode in November, is because if you're going to take on this commitment of fighting porn, if you're going to get to that point, or maybe if you're restarting this pursuit in your life, it's important to have the support structure in place for yourself. And your accountability partner is not something to overlook. I'm not trying to say you can't do it with that one, but it's really challenging to do it without one. So choosing the right person is so integral. And I think there's just not anything like a challenge, Kevin, in the sense that it gives you very specific goals and things you can check off as you go. I'm a huge fan of them just in general. And I think it's a good way to really get yourself stoked on something like this. So starting with that, and I also think in letting your accountability partner know, as we suggested, that hey, it's going to be a little more tense in the beginning, but then as we go, hopefully I'm more under control. It's going to be a weekly thing. That's going to give them something to be able to say like, okay, I'm not going to be having to check in with this person for every single day for the rest of their lives, but I do want to help them out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and something that we should also suggest too is, while you're doing these daily check-ins, to also try to have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation with them on a week-to-week basis. Again, if this is someone you're already close with, you might actually see them on a regular basis enough where you can have these types of conversations. But really more so the importance of having an accountability partner is someone who's just there to listen, and for someone who's there to support you as a reminder of your journey when there's times where you're weak along the journey, So that's, as long as they're fulfilling that role, that's what's most important. And then
Yeah.
the details of how to make that the most effective are important as well. But really just making sure you choose the right accountability partner first is the most important. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I'm going to touch on it a little bit here, Kevin, but in the next episode for this week, we're going to touch on in much more depth on the structure of what that might look like, that daily check-in or that weekly check-in. What I will say right now is that when you're talking to your accountability partner, it's important to let them know how your week went, as well as, if you're doing a challenge, how those goals are being met. And then especially in regards to your long-term goals, in quitting porn, you need to be specific with what kind of help you're looking for, right? Because they may not feel comfortable talking about like, I don't know how to help this guy with quitting porn. Being a listening ear, being an encouraging person is the biggest part of what you're asking them to help you with. And so being like clear with what it is you're asking for with that. But also, I highly encourage that if you tell them the steps you're trying to take, whether that being putting your phone across the room at night or journaling or whatever else, that's something you either did or did not do throughout the day, right? Your accountability partner can be someone who can ask you, hey, how did journaling go for the week? And you could be like, oh, I didn't journal. And then oh, shoot, I need to get back on journaling, right? So be specific about what are the things I'm trying to get done. And then on top of that, your accountability partner, if they recognize there's something that's not working for you, they should hopefully encourage you to revise your plan. And that's true for any long-term goal, Kevin. You need to come back to your plan and say, is it working? What do I need to adjust to make this more realistic, time-based, specific, measurable, attainable, right?
Yeah. And like we also talked about with last episode, about how it's important to communicate what style of accountability works best for you. It's important for you to do the same thing as well with this accountability partner. You could basically tell them like, hey, look, I respond well to negative criticism. I want you to yell at me if you feel like I'm slipping up. And if they're a really good friend of yours, they'll probably take you up on that. In fact, they might take advantage of it a little bit and actually have a little bit of fun with it, because otherwise they might have some pent-up rage and frustration towards you for other kind of trivial things that they might let out on you here and use that as permission. But that's one of the benefits of having an accountability partner who's really close to you. Even if they aren't trying to quit pouring themselves, they can be much more real with you, right? So if they might already know what kind of grinds your gears, what gets you into action, what helps inspire you if they know you really well. So if you have to do it, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add one other note, and then we could wrap this up, Kevin. I was going to say, one of the other nice things too is not always make it doom and gloom, right? This person is there to encourage you. You have a relationship with them. So hopefully you can have a sense of humor about some of this stuff. Teasing, I think, is a nice way to critique somebody while also not being too much of a hard ass. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I just want to do a little bit of a conclusion of an overview of how you should structure this from beginning to end. First, you want to identify someone who you really trust, someone that you can be real with, someone who will be real with you. And then if that person happens to also have a porn addiction, if you know them well enough, then you guys can both do this together. If not, then that's not too huge of a deal. You move on to step two. Step two, you tell them in confidence. You basically tell them how much of an importance it is for you to quit your porn habit or habitual porn lifestyle, right? And how that this is the most important thing for you to change in your life right now. Once they understand that, tell them, hey, look, I'm doing this 30-day challenge, and it doesn't need to just be for No Nut November, right? We suggest that everyone at the very least get their 30-day challenge badge first, because that's one great accomplishment first. So tell them, hey, I'm doing this 30-day challenge, and as part of that, I need to have an accountability partner. And I want you to be my accountability partner. And so here's how this is going to go. It's going to be really simple. All you need to do is just listen to me when I reach out to you. That's it. And for myself, a rule I'm going to set for myself is to send you a 1-minute voice message of how my day went. And then all I ask in response is for you to just send me a thumbs up that you listened to it, or you can give your input if you'd like. But if not, it's not a big deal. And then I also want to just, we always see each other all the time, but just like once a week, just talk a little bit more in depth whenever we hang out, just a little bit more in detail about this type of stuff. And then, and that's it, man. And I really appreciate your help. This is the most important thing in my life, at least for this month, to really, really overcome. And I'm stoked to have you support me if you're down with it. Right. So that's kind of like the overview process of how this should all look.
Whether your accountability partner is able to meet face-to-face or you have to call them on the phone, it's important to be, I think, intentional about, hey, at the end of your call, let's do this again on, when are you free? Tuesday at 9? Okay, great. And then it's going to be at least 10 minutes, 10 plus minutes. But you want to be catching up for at least that amount of time to be able to let them know how your week is going. What are some of the things you're doing? What is working well? What's been hard? That intentionality is going to be key throughout everything that you do. Thanks for joining us, for being intentional enough to be listening to us on this show. Kevin and I really want to help you guys find freedom from porn. It's such a devastating thing to have in your life, and we want as many people as possible to be able to kick it. If you appreciate what we're saying and doing, make sure you leave a comment on YouTube. Rate and review and subscribe to us on Apple Podcast and Spotify when they're on there as well. Keep an eye open for that. Next episode, we're going to be talking about the suggested structure for meetings and some examples of what the daily check-in might look like in more depth.
Later.